So, in life, there are moments that are completely transforming and life-altering. Winning the lottery. I know none of you ever play. It's a waste of your money. Don't do it. It changes a life, though. Finding your spouse and knowing that's the one. It's transformative. Also happens on the negative side. Sometimes life is going great and a challenge is dropped in front of you, an obstacle that just puts a halt to all of your plans, and everything is different. Same thing happens in our spiritual lives. I like to talk about faith as a journey. We're walking this road. Jesus is at our side. Sometimes there's mountain peaks, sometimes there's valley lows, but you probably have those moments in your life that are transformative in your faith journey. I know I have many. Going to Bible camp as an elementary school kid and having a kid tell me, or a counselor tell me that he saw the anointing of God on my life. Going on a mission trip as a teenager and seeing how God used us teenagers to minister to people in El Salvador. Multiple other points, high points often, sometimes low points, but they shape me, they move me, they propel me forward in my faith. And when I schedule these mission trips for our youth, that is exactly what I'm trying to create. Life-changing moments for every single teenager who attends. And this year, God didn't disappoint. Last Sunday, I left my house at 4:30 in the morning. I arrived here at 4:55 and half the kids were already here. They were so excited. I was exhausted. Already. We drove 11 hours. We were together for 6 days straight. We drove back for 10 hours yesterday. We did a little driving Friday. We didn't just speed and shave an hour off. We got back to the church at 7. I made it home at 8. It was a long time together, but God worked in those moments. We were 7 days in northern Colorado. We went up the Rocky Mountains. You're going to hear about from the youth today what they did, how God moved, and how God showed up in all sorts of unexpected ways. And then at the end, we're going to talk about what does it mean for God to show up, not just to youth on the 1 week that you all spend a lot of money to send us to go somewhere, but that God can show up in your lives, that God shows up in this room as we stand and we sing the praise of God as loud as we can. That's what it means to praise God. So if you're not familiar, a youth mission trip or how they're done in America a lot right now, there's companies, and what they do is they bring teenagers in and you stay at a church and they organize a bunch of places for you to serve in the community to which you go. We went and did a lot of community service type places that you're going to hear about. In this week, we've got morning devotionals. We've got a little devotional book that they do during the lunchtime that they have together. And then there's an evening service along with a whole bunch of fun activities mixed in. And so you're going to hear about all the work that they've done and how and the fun that they had. But we're going to start by talking about the sites that they attended. So today, I'm just going to warn you, it might be a little longer service. Don't look at the clock. As Larry said, I took it down for a reason, so you have no idea how long we go today. Okay, so first, if June, you want to come up. So June served at High Point, and that's about all I knew. So June, describe what is High Point and who did you work with?
High Point was a disabled adult day center where people with all range of disabilities went and learned how to do all kinds of different things, from like learning how to eat properly without making a big mess, learning how to do math, write their bills, learn how to socialize with people, clean up their houses, just things to help with them with their daily life.
And then what was your experience in your 4 days that you had with
we
clients?
got to experience their social norms, how they did things and how they understood things and how they wanted us to help them. One of the things that the director told us was not to be awkward around them. They're just people with disabilities. They just have a little bit more of a struggle than we do. They are the same as us. We did a field day on our last day there.
June organized this whole field day herself. Okay.
We did it to make sure that everyone with every kind of disability was able to play some kind of part in the day, whether they just sat there or they played cards with us or they just threw balls or they just played with things in their hands. They were there. They were participating with us.
That's awesome. And then, so how did God play a role in your work site?
All throughout the week, we kept hearing that God doesn't give us all that we want, but He will give us everything that we need. These people didn't have everything that they wanted, not hardly at all, but they did have everything and everyone they needed to survive. They didn't have to have the simple small things. They had the people that they needed that helped them do whatever they had. They had the supplies that they needed to do what they needed with their lives.
Yeah. It was awesome hearing about how these kids reached out with compassion to people that I know they can seem scary because they're different. But God loves everybody. And so it was great to hear about how you guys were able to minister to them. Thanks, June. So next we have Leah coming up, and she served at a place called LeMay. So LeMay was essentially a nursing home is how you described it to me. What was your first impression when you got in the van, you show up, and you're dropped off at this facility called LeMay?
I was a little nervous, but it was nice because it was just such a beautiful facility.
Mhm.
We had a place to stay. All the residents were just so happy to see us, and we just had a great place to serve this week.
Okay, and was it a little, did it end up at the end of the week being like what you expected when you first got there?
It was so much more than we could have expected. They had activities for the residents that we got to participate in. We got to know so many people. We just got to serve together, and it was amazing.
Okay, I know you had a favorite resident. What did you do with her?
My favorite resident, her name was Neoma. And so Sammy and I, one day, we went to her room and we said, "Do you want to go on a walk with us?" And we wheeled her out to the courtyard and we just got to walk with her and talk with her and learn about her childhood. It was awesome.
Right. So she had like Alzheimer's, or she wasn't able to remember stuff in the current time, right? Much or a little bit?
She was okay.
She was okay. Okay. But what they learned is people love talking about their childhood. I gave them that tip, and they said she talked. It was a long time you were out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was your favorite part about the whole time serving there?
Honestly, just getting to know the residents. Every one of them just had their own little thing they like to do.
Mhm.
Some of them like to go kickboxing when we had exercise time.
Okay.
We had a little tea party and it was just so cute watching all of them.
Did you take them bowling?
We did Wii bowling.
Yeah. Awesome. And then how did God show up at that site?
It was just so amazing seeing to get all of us teenagers serve in a way we've never served before. A lot of us weren't used to serving in a nursing home.
Mhm.
It was just awesome seeing all of us just get to be comfortable with the residents.
Awesome. I'm excited because now I have some people I said they need to come with me when I go every 10th week and do Bible study at the nursing home and at, what's the place next door? Homestead. They're like, yeah, we want to do that. And so these stretching activities are fantastic for that. Daisy, you want to come up and talk about... So Daisy served at Elder House. Who does the Elder House serve, and like what does that look like at that
Elder
facility?
House is a place where there's like disabled people, but with like older people where their families couldn't take care of them or they had work, and it's like adult daycare like June's was,
Okay.
but it was more like
Do they live there?
no.
Okay, so that's
They
one of the
are
big
there
differences.
At 8 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. and then their parents or whoever they
Caregiver.
caregiver drops them off.
Okay,
Takes them home.
awesome. And what specifically are some of the activities that you did with those clients?
Specifically, I mostly stayed inside.
Mhm.
Eve and some other of the churches went outside mostly. But what I did, we played Uno. We made candles, which was really fun.
Mhm.
And I'm so happy some of them did not get burnt like me.
Okay.
And and we just really just had a good time. Especially in the mornings, we just sit there and we just talk about
Yeah.
whatever we wanted, like childhood,
Mhm.
what their favorite music was. We had like an hour conversation about what music we liked.
All right. And then how did you feel when the whole thing came to an end on Thursday?
I was kind of sad. As well as Leah, I had a favorite resident, and she was really sweet. Her name was Gina, and
Okay.
she was like, "Well, you can visit me anytime soon. Like, I hope to see you later." And I almost cried because I'm like, "Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I can't."
You knew you weren't going to see her
I
later.
know, and it was really sad.
All right.
So if I ever could go back, I would totally go back.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. All right, Julia, you're next. So they had a lot of sites working with people with disabilities, and Julia's is similar, but this time not with old folks. Who did you work with?
I worked with a bunch of kids in a respite care. And so basically what we did was we watched them all day and just got to be their buddy for the week, and it was super fun.
Okay, what was your first impression when you found out that you were going to be working with kids with disabilities?
I was a little nervous because I don't have very much patience, but throughout the week I learned to have patience with the kids because, they're kids and,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you've attended a few trips before. How does this compare with like some of the other types of projects that you've done at other trips?
So with the other trips, they're more of like work trips where you go in gardens for a week,
Yeah.
or it's more like labor
Yeah.
centered. But this was more like serving the public and
Mhm.
like the people in the community.
Okay. And what did the interactions between you and the kids look like?
So they were actually really fun. So throughout the week, we went bowling, we went fishing, and did some archery, and just a bunch of other fun things. And the interactions were super sweet. They love to have dance parties.
Okay. Those are special memories I see by the laughter.
Oh yeah.
You've got memories you can't describe.
Having a dance party in the back of the bowling alley.
Sweet. So, and then how did you see God showing up on that site?
So I saw God throughout just the entire week, whether we were bowling outside or inside. I usually saw it when like the kids, when they first saw us, they'd run up to us and give us a big hug at the beginning of the day. And like just seeing the kids like grow through even throughout the week, it was just great. And seeing the connections between us and the kids
Yeah.
with each other, it was amazing.
Yeah. Just loving on them. Right? Awesome. Thanks, Julia. Isaac, would you mind coming up and talking about the Weld County Food Pantry? So Greeley, Colorado, where Northern Colorado University is got a huge Hispanic population, a lot of poverty, and a monster food pantry that we worked in. I was with Isaac for this week. Isaac, tell us a little bit about what you did at that food pantry.
We got there and we would take these commercial size food bags of potatoes and beans and we'd put them into family size bags. We would also sort the good vegetables and fruit from the bad vegetables and fruit and send them to a farm, which we call the pig pen.
The bad vegetables went to the farm.
Went to the pig pen.
Yeah.
And we'd put the good food on the line for the families that needed the food today or the day that we were there.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you remember how many families were served each week?
For the beans, we did about 4,000 2-pound bags of beans. So
Yeah.
about 4,000 families for the beans.
8,000 pounds of pinto beans. Scooped, put into a bag, run through a tape thing, and tossed into a bin.
We also did about 3,000 backpacks of food, which would go to...
Describe a backpack. What did that, like, what were we doing there?
We were taking milk, cans of soup, it was SpaghettiOs and stuff, and just like their daily food they could have for one day of a meal. And we put them in a bag, and then we put all these bags inside these containers on a pallet, and we put them out and ship them out to somewhere for them to be put in a backpack for kids that need.
Right. It was an assembly line about 20 feet long, and I just walked like this, grabbing stuff and putting it in, tie it, put it at the end, go here, grab the bag, and do it again, like 1,000 times. It was a day. And then on this trip, or for our crew, there was a special guy from another church. He was like a 6th grader, who was the size of a 4th grader, who did not speak when we got here, okay? And Isaac decided to take him under his wing. Tell us a little bit about some of the conversations and things you tried to help him learn.
Micah, when I first met Micah, he was just there. He was sitting in the corner. On the van, he sat in the seat by itself, and he kind of huddled over on his phone the whole time. And I tried to start talking to him because he was there. He wasn't really helping much, which was fine. He was shy, and we talked, and I got him to talk more and get him out of his shell. And towards the end, he was helping a lot. He was very excited to talk about everything he wanted to and everything else.
Yeah. He used the knife probably for the first time to cut the onion sacks open. I could tell he'd never done that. He didn't know how to tie a grocery bag tight. So like he had to literally for a while show him how to tie a bag and close it up. And he was patient and worked with them. And at times I had to say, Micah, stop talking and get to work. Thanks, Isaac. However, a mission trip is more than just work, work, work. There's a lot of fun activities included in the day program as well as even in the nighttime service. And Eve found herself in the middle of a whole lot of these activities. And so I wanted her to share her experience of so we use multiple different companies from year to year that kind of do similar things, but they're different. We worked with a company called Group. They're the same company that did our vacation Bible school. And this is called Week of Hope. And so they have a lot of this stuff as year after year they do similar things. And Eve jumped into a lot of it.
Yeah, so they had a lot of fun activities to do like during the day when we were not working.
Mhm.
So there was like a singing group, which was fun. We also had like a skit team, which I participated in. I really enjoyed that.
Mhm.
Then there was also Nine Square, which was so much fun. It was like a great way for churches to like connect with people.
All right. And how do these activities create a better experience for the youth that come to the camp?
I mean, like I would say like it's just like when you're like with people, like you're like doing things with people, and like it's just like a great way to connect with other people if you don't necessarily want to. Like you have to like if you're playing Nine Square, you have to talk to other people. You know,
Right,
I
exactly.
like spend time with other people.
Yeah, it mixes you in with all sorts of other people from other churches. Thanks, Eve. And so, as you heard on these trips, we aren't the only church there. There's a lot of people to connect with. And Molly connected really well across our crew and with all sorts of people. I think Molly made the most friends. And she wanted to prove it to you by wearing the shirt with all of their names on it today. So, Molly, you connected with a ton of people. Where were the churches from that we served with?
So there was 4 churches there. Us, First Baptist. There was Evangel from Michigan,
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Close enough in MI.
St. Mark's from Nebraska and Dry Ridge from Kentucky.
Utah.
Utah?
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
You talk to them more. They were an all-girls group with only a female leader, so I didn't connect with them a whole lot. So tell us a little bit about the connections that you made in Crew 10, and why do we call it Crew 10?
We call it Crew 10 because I also worked at the food bank, and it was 2 crews who went to work with each other. Crew 7, which was me, Ryan, and Isaac, and then Crew 3. But both of our crews worked so good together that we decided to call ourselves Crew 10 because we realized, like, on the first day, we were, kind of getting to know each other. But the second day, like, just like that, we called ourselves a family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big group to have 14 people that get along so well and work together so well. Was a lot of fun. So how did it benefit you personally to take the time to make these friends with the teenagers and the other youth groups? Like, how did that impact you, spreading your wings and not just sitting at our lunch table every single day?
Well, it made my life amazing. Like, I'm normally, like, quiet and don't like, socialize with other kids. But, like, a lot of those kids there had, like, kind of like the same personality. Like, sure, they were younger and I'm older than them, but it's like, I don't really know how to explain it. It's just an amazing feeling because I was, like, so excited. And Wednesday, I said to Ryan, this is the best day of my life. But Thursday was even better.
Yeah, it was awesome. Molly went to Colorado as a caterpillar, and she left as a butterfly, and it was really, really fun. So now, as leaders, we were told ahead of time that Wednesday night was going to be the pinnacle of the spiritual aspect of this entire camp. And so for me, this is the primary reason why I bring the kids to camp, is to talk about the spiritual aspects and help them grow in their faith. So I was especially praying that God would show up. I know many of you were praying that God would show up, and he did. And I want Sam to share a little bit about what that all meant for her. So first we have to start with, many of you have no idea who this young lady is because she joined our youth group very late. So Sam, tell us first a little bit, how did you end up on our mission trip? Because I hadn't met you until the middle of April, no, beginning of April was probably the first time I met you.
Yeah, my friend Olivia was talking all about the youth group at our track practices together, and it sounded like a lot of fun. And I found myself asking questions about it, and she invited me to come with. within like week 3 of me being here, Ryan's like, hey, why don't you go on the mission trip with us? And
Right.
that was terrifying
Hmm.
because I had not been here very long at all.
Mm.
But I've gotten so close to these people, it almost feels like I've been here the whole time. So
That's awesome. So now, how would you, in general, how would you describe, like, what was a nightly service? What did that look like on Sunday night, Monday night, the standard stuff? What did we do for those night services?
when we got back from our work sites, we had like a little bit of time to hang out with each other. And then we would have a nightly program where all 4 of the churches that came to our mission trip would all sit together, and we would kind of have like a VBS style like lesson. But I feel like we made all of our real connections when we split off into our own little youth groups and did our own personal devotionals together.
Okay. And then Wednesday night was a little different. What made Wednesday night different? Sam, try to describe what happened. Do your best.
Wednesday night was really special. We split off from our nightly program and we found ourselves just together. We ended up in a circle, holding hands, praying back and forth. I don't think there was a dry eye by the end of it.
Mhm.
We were all pretty much sobbing by the end of it. It was just an amazing feeling that I've really never felt before. It felt like God was there holding hands with all of us together and bringing us all closer together.
Yeah, there's like a tangible aspect that everybody there can be like, I feel something different in the room. It was incredible. So, how did you say God moving in the youth group after that experience?
Okay, I'm not gonna cry. It's okay. we instantly all got way closer together. You could just tell from just right after that night. We all hung out. We talked to each other. We cried together. It was amazing. Whole rest of the trip, we became a family, and I still feel that now.
And how did it impact your life personally going forward? Like, what's your relationship with God before the trip to where you are today?
Before I went on the trip, I hadn't really I knew I believed in God. I knew he was real. I knew he was there, but I feel like I never had personally connected with him before or felt his presence like that before. So when I felt him that night, it was just truly amazing. It was a feeling I've never felt before. And I just instantly felt changed. Like my whole perspective changed. And I know that he sees me, and I know that he cares about me. And I know that he cares about all of you guys too.
God works in incredible ways. Stay here. Sam, give me a hug. The first week she came to youth group, she told me afterwards, she's like, that message you spoke was exactly what I've been going through this week. And the second week, that message was exactly what I needed to hear. It was like God dropped her into our youth group at the perfect time that she needed to be here so that he could get a hold of her life in a new and fresh way. Thanks, Sam. All right, to the lighter side. I scheduled this trip, honestly, to northern Colorado, not because I'm like, yeah, I want to serve the people of Loveland, but because the Rocky Mountains are 2 hours from Loveland, and I wanted to take the kids to the Rocky Mountains and for them to experience all of God's nature there. And so we had an opportunity on Tuesday to see a little bit down in the foothills, and on Friday, when most of the churches went home, we headed west. We went up through Estes Park. It's like sheer cliffs of rock as you go through that little valley. You get to Estes. We luckily got the timed entry pass so we could get into Rocky Mountain National. We saw the Alluvian fan. We went to the very top. We hiked to 12,000 feet where I was gassed. It was awful. Trice, if you want to come up and tell us a little bit about what you were able to see for maybe the first time ever in your life on going up into Rocky Mountain.
Okay, well,
yeah.
Okay.
You got that strong baritone voice. I like it.
If you thought you were gassed, I have asthma, and being
Okay.
that high up,
Oh, man.
walking upstairs 200 feet in elevation, halfway through.
Yeah. At 12,000
at
feet.
12,000 feet
Yeah.
on the very tip
Oh,
top of a mountain. And I thought it was just crazy. I mean, it really is God's country out there. It is so, like, there's no, like, there's not a lot of man-built structures up there. And it's just, you can see all sorts of wildlife. And we've seen elk, we've seen Jacob and Isaac, I think, saw a moose and her calf. And I thought that was pretty cool. We thought what we thought, or we saw what we thought were axolotls, but were actually western tiger salamanders in a lake. And I thought they were really cool.
Right.
And it was just breathtaking, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. You guys don't get the experience I get when you take kids into something that's absolutely incredible and they see it for the first time, and the words and the gasps that come out of their mouth. I always just have an ear-to-ear grin like, I love this. This is why I do this. It was really cool. Like, you know, just as you start, you're going up the mountain, you're taking pictures, and you're like, this is so cool. And then you get to more, and that's more cool. What was your favorite part of going up into Rocky Mountain?
I think my favorite part was when we actually got to the top of the mountains. You could see snow at the very top, and all of us really wanted to go out and play, but the tundras were closed. And I thought it was just so cool to see snow in June.
Yeah.
And when we got to because in Loveland, it was 90-something degrees, and then at the very top of the mountain, it was in the low to mid-60s.
Yeah, 61.
61 degrees.
All right. So then finally, how do you see God in nature when you're in a space like that?
When you see God in nature, just the sheer size of some of those mountains is just crazy. And the Bible talks about climbing mountains to get messages from God, like when Moses climbed Mount
Sinai. Yep.
Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments. I mean, there's a reason God has those people climb those mountains, and it really is just truly beautiful out there, and it is really just good.
Yeah, it's a way to connect with God. That's awesome, Trice. Thank you very much for sharing. And now I wanted Jacob to come up and share. Jacob, along with June, are the only two students who have participated in all 4 mission trips that I have taken as a part of First Baptist. And so, Jacob, what has it been like going on summer mission trips all 4 years of high school?
Well, you can really see how it kind of formed me as a person, formed my walk with Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can also see how it formed some of the folks around me, too.
Yeah.
Some of the kids that I've seen first-timers or second-timers. I mean, you can see it changes people.
Yeah, absolutely. So how have the trips impacted you personally?
Like I said, my walk with Christ wouldn't be the same if I hadn't. I mean, not that I wouldn't go to church otherwise, but there's just something about going out, working for Him, being His hands and His feet. Like the Bible said, faith without works is dead. So.
Yeah. Right. And then these high points spiritually, it's like they're creating these stones of remembrance, you know, that I always talk to the kids. It's like you're making a little altar here to God to remember what He did in this moment, in this place, how He showed up. So last question, you wrote this question yourself for me to ask you. Is there anything that you would say to a younger person on the fence about going on a mission trip next year?
Well, if they were on the fence, it depends on what side of the fence they're on. If they're one of the kids that go to youth group every religiously every week, well, I'd say do it.
Yeah.
If they're that kid that just wants to go see something, they really have no spiritual interest in God, I'd say save the slot for another kid.
All right.
But in all honesty, if it's a kid that does need Jesus, and needs to have that spiritual high, to see something, to have a tangible presence of God, I'd say do it 100%.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacob. And then I wanted Dan to come up and talk about the trip from the leader's perspective. We brought 11 youth, and we also brought 4 leaders, 3 leaders plus me. And this was Dan's 3rd trip now. So Dan, This year we took an older group of teens. What was it like being a leader of the group that we just took there?
Well, it was very encouraging to see these teens, come and grow into being young adults, not having to wake them up to get to breakfast on time, not having to clean up after them. They were able to clean up their rooms before we left. There was another room beside us that had younger kids, and it looked like a bomb just went off in that room.
Yep.
And so leaders had to stay longer and clean up at that room. And then they were always on time. They were always able to get to where we needed to be on time and never had to be told or reminded.
Yeah, and we heard some really positive feedback about our group from some of the other leaders of the other churches. What are some of the things we heard?
Their maturity, their kindness, their respect. They are always willing to jump in, help in every setting that they needed to. They showed great leadership with the kids that were younger.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like, I had leaders going out of their way to come up to me and be like, your kids are so helpful for my crew and to be a model for the younger people. So you guys did really, really well. You made a huge difference. Thank you. So these trips are completely exhausting. In moments, they're very frustrating. There's always something that you're just like, you want to have some control over it. You can't. They're a bit disorienting. But no matter how badly things might seem to be starting, and there are moments in the beginning where the kids were like, this is not a good trip. But God always shows up. You've heard many of the ways the kids have already described how God showed up on this trip. Making new friends who made them feel loved and accepted right away. Stretching them to show love to those that they might have previously overlooked. Getting out into nature and through the overwhelming beauty of the mountains and all the wildlife, including the prairie dogs, and the power of the waterfall. Trice didn't talk about the waterfall. We climbed up way too far, and it was absolutely incredible. And it was so loud, and there's just power in nature, and to know that God formed that all. In our nightly program, even when the music was a bit of a mess, there were 4 churches of teenagers who just wanted to sing the songs. And there were moments where I wanted to say, just turn off what you guys are playing and let's sing this thing a cappella, because these kids are singing at the top of their lungs, and it was awesome. Especially on Wednesday night when the power of God, like I said, it felt like a wave just going through my being. And to just, as I started to feel it, hearing the kids start bawling all the way around me and be like, okay, this isn't just me. This isn't just me, making something up in my head and in my heart. This is something that's going on, shared here amongst all of us. The other crew was praying and just like hearing what was going on there. And I kind of waited for them to that church to leave before we started doing our small group time. And just knowing, allowing that quiet space and lingering in God's presence, and knowing that I didn't need to say a thing because God's Spirit was doing all the work that needed to be done. Sin was being laid bare. There were kids who were turning to repentance. There was forgiveness that was extended in some broken relationships and relationships that were mended. Some, like you've heard, felt that presence of God for the very first time and finally made a decision to go all in with Jesus. And this is where you guys all come in, church family. We can't take these trips without you. These trips are expensive. Many of you have donated and supported us. And at the spaghetti fundraiser, you put a lot more into the basket than what that meal is worth. And I'm grateful for that. Some of you just hand me cash on the way out the door. One family handed me cash and they're like, I hope it's enough. And I said, I always get about 300. It'll be fine. And guess what? That's exactly the number of dollars that they handed to me. And in those moments, I always think, well, see, God knows exactly what I need. And that's how much cash I needed to get through the trip. These are not accidents. God is moving through all of us to make things happen. You guys, I know, are praying for this trip. I know that you're praying for these kids individually. That's why we put their name in the prayer guide last week. And so you are who makes these trips possible. And so right now in front of you, you have seen the next generation of our community and the next generation of this church standing in front of you, talking about how God is forming them. And you're playing a huge part in supporting them. So thank you so much. I do ask, continue to pray for them this week. Re-entry from a mission trip and the mountain high to regular life is very jarring. It is hard. And it's very easy to slip into old patterns. You guys know that. You've gone on trips before. And a week from now, you'll be like, what happened? Pray for these kids that that's not their experience, that new patterns are set, and that their relationship with Jesus is forever transformed. And now turning from the experience these youth had last week in their own lives, maybe you've sat and you've been listening to this and you've been thinking, I've never felt that. I've never felt the tangible power of God, the physical presence of God in my life. And you're thinking, I want that for myself. That's awesome. We worship a real and living God. He's not just an idea in a book. He's not just stories in the Bible that we just in our minds say, I agree with. He's a God who is real, who speaks to us, who challenges us, who meets us in our moments of need, who loves us. If you're willing to say, I want that experience, then I guarantee God will meet with you. We had a young man who's not here today. He's the only one who is scheduled, so I'm going to tell his story and just not use his name. Been on 2 mission trips before this. And in the moments where God shows up, I've seen him and he's there and he participates in everything and he's come to youth group for 5 years. He's always there. And I asked him, I said, you never miss youth group. Why do you come? And he said, because there's just something there that I feel loved and accepted and I just want to be there. And I said, but when we have these high points in the trips, it always feels like it just doesn't resonate with you. And he's like, yeah, I just don't get it. So we had that night like Tuesday, that conversation. And I told him, I'm like, I don't have a good pastor thing to say to you right now. I'll think about it. And then that night I thought, stupid Ryan. It's because he doesn't have a relationship with Jesus made his own yet. So on Wednesday before the program, I caught him and I said, hey, I think I know why you haven't had that feeling yet. Because you haven't made the decision to go all in. You haven't said, like the come to the altar. You haven't made that step for yourself. And until you do that, you're not going to experience it. Well, he decided to make that step. It was very apparent. God smacked him in a really cool way. I got to pray with him and just pray God's blessing over his life and that he would be forever transformed. And just the conversation we had, I know his life is now transformed going forward. And that's why we go on the trips. Because as you've heard, lives are formed and changed. And what that means is families and generations are now changed because they met with God. And they found out it's not just the faith of their parents, the faith of their Sunday school teachers who have taught them for so many years. Yes, that's incredibly important role of the church. But at this age, they have to make that decision for themselves. And they have to take that faith for themselves. And it's been an incredible thing to watch that happen. So, I'm going to pray. And after I pray, we're going to sing a final song. I let the kids pick the song. It's going to be Reckless Love. It's an anthem that they love. And they're going to come up here. And they're going to lead us in it. And you're all going to sing with us. As we are reminded that we worship a God who, if there are 100 sheep and he counts and he finds that one is missing, he leaves the 99 and he goes after the one. He is the God who pursues, and he is the God who cares about each and every one of them, and he's the God who cares about each and every one of you in this room. So if you have never had that opportunity to meet with God and encounter God, God is pursuing you. The fact that you're in this room hearing the testimony of these kids is proof that God wants you to know he is real and he wants to have a living, true, tangible relationship with you. Would you bow your heads with me as we pray?